Hello, everyone. D. Alfred Ostrowski here, and in this recording, I'm going to be giving a demo of the OpenAI ChatGPT API using Python programming language. And I'm going to use this through Amazon AWS instance. So if you want to duplicate what I'm doing, you shouldn't have any problems at all. You should be able to follow through directly using an AWS Ubuntu instance. That way, we don't have any incompatibilities with the installation of the software or essentially the running of anything. I'll also make the commands available on associate GitHub that'll associate it in the README with this video recording. So I'm assuming some prior knowledge of EC2 instances, and I am in the Amazon AWS account, and I'm going to launch an instance and start from that point. So I'm going to launch a EC2 Ubuntu instance. I'm going to scroll down, basically default most of the process. I'm going to choose a T2 micro. Due to the fact I don't need a lot of power to run the API for ChatGPT. And I'm going to use initialize my key pair so I can log in. And everything else, I'm pretty much going to leave as a default. So while that's launching, let me just spend a few seconds. I don't want to spend a lot of time, but we'll go through my experience with the OpenAI. Now, to be consistent, I used ChatGPT to help myself implement the OpenAI based API for ChatGPT. However, it was slightly confusing, and I did get some rate limit errors until I subscribed for the paid subscription. So if you have rate limit errors without even running through any type of free trial, which I certainly didn't, you might be interested in subscribing to their paid model, which should be more amenable to giving you reliable access at this point. If you go through all the documentation on the upper left, contrary to what the ChatGPT will even tell you in their own documentation, there is no direct sign up here until you register your account. Of course, you're going to have to sign up to use it in the first place. But again, I did not have success with the API without going into a paid account. So you have some basic explanation of the API, how to install it. I'm going to go through my installation process really quick. They do have some documentation and some basic explanation of the models that you see here. When you want to really look at pricing, you're going to have to log up here to the upper right of the personal, and that is where you're going to manage your account, and that's where you're going to obtain your keys. So I can go into the account, give me usage. You want to monitor this. I want to go under user and go into API keys, and a little bit confusing because some of the responses from ChatGPT, and I'll post those if you want to pour through what I tried to obtain directly from ChatGPT to troubleshoot their own product. It almost implied that I would go through API up in the upper left, but I did not access that from here. I had to go through my personal account as well as getting an API key that was emailed to me once again after I subscribed to a paid subscription. Now they have the pay as you go model with the API, but that is not associated with signing up for it unless you're looking for, let's say, a commercial account. So there is some confusion with if you're encountering a rate limit error or any type of similar error to what I have. But you want to take a look at the documentation and familiarize yourself with this process. You're going to have to generate a key. I'm not going to go through the process because I don't want to expose my key in the video. I'm going to be using a dummy key and go off screen, put in my real key and replace that for the demo. And I'll post everything, of course, not including my personal key that I intend on using. But you want to keep, as with everything else, you want to be very vigilant with this. And I'd encourage best practice, which would be including git ignore if you're using GitHub, and using environment variables to read in those API keys. For the reason of brevity, I will not be using environmental variables for that. So do your own research, be comfortable with the product and what you're spending money for, because this is secured by accredited information. And while nominal, just like everything else, it does add up over time. So let's go back to the EC2 instance, which at this point should be up and running. So I'm going to click and grab my IP. And again, you should be able to duplicate my commands exactly in the same fashion. For that reason, I'm running this on an EC2 instance. So here I'm going to read in my key, and I'm going to bring up a PuTTY session, and I'm going to log in to a brand new instance to the install, and we're going to do a quick call of the ChatGPT API. So here I have my instance up and running. I'm going to go full screen on that. And as usual, I have a default username password, Ubuntu. That always comes with the EC2 instance. So the only thing I need to do is install pip, and then I can install the openai. With Ubuntu, I already have Python installed. So again, we're going to have a very, very standard means of gaining access to this. Now, I tried NPM. It didn't work appropriately for me. An NPM install of the openai library, even following their instructions exactly in Ubuntu, again, is favored by me because it's the most popular implementation of Unix, or at least the most documented. But I'm going to do a sudo apt install Python 3 pip. And I may have to do an apt-get update before that. I think that's what I'm missing here. So let me try that. Now it should work. And again, I'm going to take my history, I'll post that, and you won't have to spend the time annotating the video as it's being implemented. So there we go. So now it worked. If I do the apt-get update, and now I can install the pip module, and I should be able to do a successful installation. Now, I was able to install with NPM. However, it wasn't reading it in from the Python, which is probably an issue pointing to that library. But this is the path of least resistance. I'm not a fan of pip. I usually use NPM installs. But in this case, I'm just interested in getting it up and running. So this looks okay, like I'm good to go. So that was the Python pip. And now I'm going to do a pip openai. Sorry, pip 3 openai. One more time. Pip install. Sorry about that. Okay, so this is it. Now I can bring in Python, and I'm calling in Python 3. Okay, and now we're almost there. So I'm going to do import openai, and I have successfully written the openai module of the command prompt. Now I'm going to pause it, and I'm going to go and load in my key information. So let me pause for a second. Back again, I went off screen, and essentially I'm going to show you the command that I use. I just made the association of the API key, and here I have fake, and I'm essentially going to read that in to the openai library. So I'm reading in my real one that I went off screen, again, to not compromise my key information on any level. Now, again, you want to select your own models. What was suggested by ChatGPT itself when I asked it, was to use the Da Vinci model. And again, I can go on and on. It's much longer video describing the models and how everything's configured. So now I can do the call. I can do a openai completion create, and I'm going to just pull this in here with a basic query as such. So I'd openai creation completion create, and I'm asking how far from the Earth to Mars, and I'm associating that model, and I had put in my real key, which says initiated in similar fashion. So I 1, 2, 3, 4 lines of code. And now I can pull that response, and I have the information that came back. And here it gave me a nonsensical answer. The last time actually did give me the distance. So sometimes you get a little bit of inconsistency from ChatGPT, but we did make a successful call using the API, and we got the response back. And this is a great starting point. You could easily duplicate this in JavaScript or Go, or any other language that you favor. So I hope this helps, and good luck with it. Once again, at this point, I think that OpenAI is looking for paid subscribers. You should be able to use the API free, but to my experience, it's being more and more difficult without subscribing to some type of paid model. So be careful as you're securing with your credit information, and do your appropriate due diligence for the understanding of the model and usage rates, and following through with the resources that you're using. That's it. Thanks for listening. Take care. Thank you.